So you want to play as a pivot like Sergio Busquets. All right, I got you. Let's take a look at how to play as the pivot. So the pivot is going to be the number 6 right here, which is basically a lone central defensive midfielder. And the reason it's called the pivot is that this player can receive the ball and then they pivot for third man passes, be it out from a central defender to the fullback, or they can even turn up the field. But what should we be doing as a pivot? So to play as the pivot, one of the skills that the pivot must be good at is receiving the ball, facing their own goal, and then being able to distribute the ball to their teammates out of the back so you can play out of the high press. To do this, maybe the most important skill the pivot must have is ability to scan. Their head needs to be on a swivel at all times, knowing where the press is coming. That way they can take their touch, turn, and play it out to a teammate and effectively help their team beat the high press. And also, as far as movement goes, the pivot isn't going to be running as hard as they can to get in space. Instead, the pivot is going to move very little, mostly small adjustments, just so they can get in between the gaps of the pressing attackers against their defensive line. That way, all they're doing is a simple shift of their body. I've opened up my body to receive the ball here. I know the press is coming from this side, so I'm going to receive it on my right foot. Then I can play into space over here. As a pivot, you must get comfortable with playing all types of passes like this. So, for example, if we're playing out of the back from a goal kick right here as the red team, with the yellow team in a high press, the pivot's role is to basically occupy these spaces right here. That way they can receive the ball. So, if the goalkeeper were to play the ball to the number 5, all the pivot's going to do is slightly shift into this space here, because they know that this player is going to be marked by the winger. However, this little opening space here is going to be open. However, they have to be aware of the number 8 that could press in behind. So what's going to happen here is the center back can play into the pivot here. Now the pivot has a choice to make. Does he play on the pivot out to the outside back, or does he play to the other center back, which is another option here, because if you notice, this position here opens up as well. And that's going to depend on how the other team presses. This will vary based on the tendencies of the other team, the tactics set up before the match, but also just the tendency of the players in the specific situations. On the ball, the pivot also needs to be not only very good at receiving 1 and 2 touch and playing the ball, but they need to have a few moves just to evade the press. So some very basic ones, you're going to have your basic Cruyff turn. So your Cruyff turn away from the press, play out your pass. We also have another variation, the pull Cruyff turn. This one allows us to keep a little bit more of a forward angle and play like this. But we have another one, the V turn. This allows me to evade a defender that is coming in to steal the ball, press like this. Little hesitations, little feints, simply change direction, play the ball. These things are going to be very, very effective. However, we also want to have some disguises. That way we can turn and go in the complete opposite direction, because the very best pivots can receive the ball back to goal and turn and play forwards. And that's something we really want to be able to do. So for example, if I receive the ball back to my goal, I might come here, then turn out to my left and play a pass with my right. Something like this is very, very effective. Other things I can do. If I know I'm getting pressured on this side of my body, I might take a touch across my body here, like I'm going to play out into the space here. Cruyff turn, face forward, then I can play a left-footed pass into space.
Offensively, though, it will often set up slightly different. Now, this will depend on the specific team and their system, but in the way I have it set up here, the pivot actually drops into the central defense in between the two center backs. That way, the center backs can press up further forward and the outside backs can get all the way up into the attack, allowing the wingers to pinch into the half spaces. This allows more attacking options for our offense while having a good playmaker on the ball here playing from there. Now, the pivot here, ideally, they can both be good at circulating the ball back between the two center backs, but also I would like them to be able to make a long crossfield ball out to the outside back into the wing if at all possible. This way, we can have an effective playmaker sitting here, but also holding back deep in case we do lose possession, that they can slow up the game, allowing the center backs to recover and our outside backs to get back into a defensive shape.
So the pivot will mostly be playing short passes. However, the very best in the world have a long passing range as well. And having this long pass ability to go direct is very important because it forces the other team to make a decision. Do they high press and risk you being able to play that ball in behind the defense, or do they have to hold back, which opens up your playing out of the back in your short passing game? But to make it even more crucial, a pivot, a good one, needs to be able to play a long driven pass with both feet. So they need to be able to push the ball out to their right foot and play a long ball into the air like that. But at the same time, if the angle's not right for a right-footed ball, they need to be able to do the same with their left foot, just like so. So practice your techniques with both feet. It's okay if you're not as good with your weaker foot. In time, you will build the strength and the technique to do so.